There have always been good reasons for Billy Bob Thornton to remain out of the limelight. First of all, he has a shy personality. He enjoys making up stories, but he would rather not be famous for them. Additionally, he is peculiar. Things he did while in the public eye made news and continue to do so now. Lastly, he has a history of tumultuous breakups in his partnerships. 20 years after his split with Angelina Jolie, Thornton has spoken publicly about the truth behind the split. Witness the untold tale of a highly publicized split in Hollywood by continuing to watch. Look at Billy Bob Thornton and #039's early life before we get into why he and Angelina Jolie and #039's marriage terminated. William Ray Thornton, a high school history teacher and basketball coach, and Virginia Roberta, who claimed to be a clairvoyant, had a son named Thornton on August 4, 1955, in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Thornton used two of his brother Jimmy Don and #039's compositions, Island Avenue, and Emily, on his solo recordings. Jimmy Don was born in April 1958 and passed away in October 1988. He has two more siblings and is of mixed Irish and English descent. During his formative years, Thornton and his family moved to Arkansas, settling in several towns like Alpine, Malvern, and Mount Holly. Despite growing up in a household without running water or electricity, he remained a devout Methodist. Even though his dyslexia went undiagnosed, he had trouble learning in Regina after graduating from Malvern High School. While in high school, Thornton excelled as a baseball player. Due to an injury, the Kansas City Royals had to release him before he could play a game. He worked as an asphalt builder before landing a job with the Arkansas State Transportation Department after graduating from Malvern in 1973. He continued on to Henderson State University, where he started a psychology degree but left halfway through his second semester. Tom Epperson, Thornton and #039's future writing and acting partner, convinced him to move to Los Angeles in the middle of 1980 so they could act together. In order to get his acting career off the ground, he worked as a telemarketer, a manager at a fast food joint, a wind farmer in Denmark, and an actor. In addition to singing and composing drums, he was a member of the South African rock band Jack Hammer. Thornton was encouraged to pursue scripting by director Billy Wilder, whom he met while working as a waiter. Thornton made her Los Angeles stage debut in September 1987 as part of the West Coast Theater Ensemble in a one-act play called Beethoven and #039's Symphonies. He made his film debut in the suspenseful Hunter and #039's Blood, playing the role of Billy, a stand-in who appeared in two sequences and was used throughout the production. South of Reno and The Photographer, an episode of Matlock from 1987, were his subsequent small parts. Going Overboard, Adam Sandler and #039's 1989 debut feature picture, featured him as a furious heckler, and he was also a cast member on the CBS comedy Hearts of Fire. With One False Move, which he co-wrote and starred in 1992, Thornton played the antagonist. Some of his films from the #039's include Tombstone, Bound by Honor, Indecent Proposal, and On Deadly Ground. Subsequently, in 1996, he achieved worldwide renown for his work as writer, director, and star of the independent film Sling Blade. Thornton received praise for Sling Blade, which led to him winning 3 awards, the Edgar, the Writers Guild of America Award, and the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. In addition to the Screen Actors Guild nomination for Best Actor, he received an Oscar for it. Additionally, he was in the 2000 Travis Tritt music video with a contemporary Bonnie and Clyde. The media has painted a picture of him as a tattooed hero who can rock a suit. He went on to star in films like Armageddon 1998 and A Simple Plan after Sling Blade and #039's success, with the latter of which he was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. As a drummer, Thornton played with the blues rock band Tres Hombres in the #039's. Billy Gibbons, lead guitarist of ZZ Top, said that Thornton and #039's band was the best little cover band in Texas, and his band had issued an album with the same moniker in 1973. Inked into Thornton and #039's skin is the name of the band. Trigger Records released Tres Hombres and #039's sole studio album, Gunslinger, in 1983. As a member of the South African rock band Jack Hammer, Thornton became involved in 1985 while he was in Los Angeles working with Pete Boda. The Box Masters were created in 2007 by Thornton and J.D. Andrew. Q, a broadcast on CBC Radio 1, featured Thornton and the Box Masters on April 8, 2009. Since Thornton was so arrogant and disrespectful to presenter John Gomez-Chi during the performance, it garnered a lot of attention and criticism from over the world. In a subsequent interview, Thornton said that he had asked the producers of the show to avoid discussing his acting background, but that Gomez had brought it up in the opening. Canadian viewers, Thornton said, were like mashed potatoes without gravy. The following night, when performing as Willie Nelson and #039's opening act at Toronto and #039's world-renowned Massey Hall, Thornton made the comment that he liked Canadians but not Gomez, which elicited boos and screams from the crowd. The Box Masters claimed that members of their crew and band fell ill, so they skipped the remaining concerts across Canada. When Billy Bob Thornton was criticized for his behavior on the CBC Radio 1 show Q, did you find it surprising? Here we will disclose information on his 6 marriages and 5 divorces, so get ready. Billy Bob Thornton, who is also a musician, has been delighting audiences with his impressive acting chops. Perhaps because to his uncomplicated nature, he attracted a large following, which included multiple ladies he would eventually wed. The Academy Award winner has tied the knot 6 times. According to his IMDb, Thornton reportedly remarked, end quote, and #039, I and #039, we've been married 5 times and people think that and #039, as some bizarre thing, and #039, end quote, this was before he tied the knot for the 6th time. Then again, I know other guys who have 15 sex partners every week and yet one and #039, tie the knot. Which one is better? End quote, well, I made an effort, right, end quote, he did, without a doubt, attempt. Billy Bob Thornton wed Melissa Lee Gatlin for the first time. Their daughter, Amanda Brumfield, was born on June 30, 1979, after a marriage that took place in 1978. In the 1980s, Melissa filed for a divorce citing incompatibility and his adultery as the reasons for the split. Thornton became an enigma to Amanda following their breakup, and Amanda was brought up by her mother. Many news outlets covered Amanda and #039's case in April 2008. Her complicity in the murder of her friend and #039's 1-year-old kid resulted in a 20-year prison sentence. In 2020, she was finally let go. In Amanda and #039's case, what are your thoughts on her release from prison? Toni Lawrence was born on April 4, 1948, and she became an actor. The information from her IMDb biography states that she had appeared in McLeod, 1970, Daddy and #039's Deadly Darling, 1973, and Soul Survivor, 1984. After a short romance with Billy Bob Thornton, she wed him in 1986 but then filed for a divorce in 1988. The couple and #039's ability to procreate is unknown. In retrospect, Toni is quoted as remarking, end quote, and #039, he and #039's talented, that and #039's obvious now, and #039, end quote, when discussing Thornton after some time has passed. She mentioned that he is sick, but she has remarried and relocated to Los Angeles. May 17, 1966 was the birthdate of Cinda Williams in Chicago, Illinois. Her stunning good looks and exceptional acting chops propelled her to the top of the entertainment industry. One False Move, 1992, Mo Better Blues, 1990, and Mad as Hell, 2021, are among her other works that can be found on IMDb. Billy Bob Thornton made a comment about their brief marriage in an article for People magazine. Cinda went on to marry film producer Roderick Plummer in 2001, and she frequently shares Instagram photos of their happy home life. According to her IMDb biography, they are parents. Pietra Dawn Cherniak, who is most often known as a Russian model, came into this world on February 9, 1970, in Santa Monica, California. Playboy Centerfolds is not only married to Billy Bob Thornton in 1993, but she is also Peyton and #039's wife. William Langston Thornton was born in June 1993, and Harry James Thornton was born in June 1994. The pair was married for a long time. Pietra chose to file for a dissolution of their marriage in April 1997, citing irreconcilable differences as the reason. Additionally, she requested a restraining order mandating that Thornton maintain a specific distance from both her and their children, asserting in court documents that the actor had attacked her about twice a month on average. Thornton denied the claims as well. "Although we had our disagreements, I never behaved in the way she claims I did. Since our sons would be the ones most impacted by her advisors and #039 actions, we should direct our attention towards them." When Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton met in 1999 on the set of Pushing Tin, he was engaged to Laura, and their relationship was rocky. The news that he had broken off their engagement and gone to be with Angelina devastated Laura. According to her, her husband got married while she was away working on a movie, and since then, she hasn't. And #039 heard from him. Billy Bob discussed the matter in an interview that took place in 2001, and #039, claiming he had to follow his heart, and #039, adding, and #039. Others may remark that you abandoned our daughter, and married someone else, but it made me happy, thus, he brought happiness to both himself and someone else. I apologize if that was painful. Between the years 2000 and 2003, Billy Bob and Angelina were wed. Brad Pitt and Angelina were married for a specific amount of time. We kind of signed our lives away to each other, legally and with blood, Angelina said when she initially brought up their relationship seriously. Their connection did not endure long, even if it was strongly sentimental. Not long after taking in a child from Cambodia, the couple went their own ways. After some time had passed, Angelina came clean about her plan to adopt the child on her own. Billy Bob has a reputation for being everything from ordinary. As a performer, he may be eccentric and unexpected at times. When attempting to construct captivating tales around his life, the media has no shortage of fodder. His relationships are a prime example of this. He freely acknowledges that his time spent with Angelina was enjoyable. They engaged in some extremely peculiar activities together. Some of their actions, including selecting burial places for themselves and him, were morbid. Is anything to be said regarding the necklaces that supposedly held vials of their blood? He clarified that, contrary to what the media had reported, they weren't an #039 constantly donning buckets of blood, but rather used them as a simple reminder of each other while they were separated. Some of what they say is true, but it and #039 is usually exaggerated or misconstrued, in my opinion. Most of our things, though, isn't and #039 that important, in my opinion. Talking about it makes it sound nice. I mean, there and #039 no such thing as a vial of blood. What on earth do you name these small, transparent things? The lockets, in which one can place a photograph. And it and #039 just a symbolic thing. We stabbed our fingers and poured a drop of blood. Billy Bob and #039 divorces were not always amicable. Perhaps that is why, following the majority of them, he chose to take refuge in a recording studio for some time. Angelina is an exception to that rule. Regarding their short time together, Billy Bob has nothing but praise. According to him, that was a fantastic period. Angie is an incredible human being who has accomplished a tremendous deal. I am fortunate to call her a friend. Additionally, he values her professional progress. He has distanced himself from movies since he is a firm believer in taking on only the roles in which he truly believes. Streaming services now have the means to produce the independent film stories that he adored in his youth. Since leaving acting to focus on directing and producing, Angelina Jolie has followed a similar trajectory. The films she directs are still meaningful to her, he explains. She continues to stand up for what she believes in regardless of the outcome. As a result, I will hold her in the highest regard. Billy Bob and #039's relationship with Angelina is one of his longest and happiest. When they were out in public, they seemed to be having a blast and enjoying themselves. What caused their separation? When it came to her, Billy Bob was never good enough, according to one of the calculations. Married to a famous celebrity, it and #039's natural to feel that way. But there was something else that was the main reason. According to Billy Bob, they have separate lives. She traversed the world on foot. He avoided leaving the house and was nearly agoraphobic. She aspired to attend social gatherings and strike up conversations with others, but he was an unexpectedly reserved man who preferred to remain in the corner. According to her 2004 interview with Vogue, end quote, "It took me by surprise too because overnight we changed," end quote. This led them to realize they needed to find someone with whom they were more compatible. "You develop and mature independently of us since we and #039, reactors, and we disappear for months at a time. Someday we might have completely different interests, and that would be terrifying. But I suppose that and #039 is what happens when you go in without fully knowing who you are. It has taken me a long time to mature, and I often feel like I have a long way to go. Therefore, I and #039 got to keep an eye on myself. Give yourself at least 7 or 8 more years before thinking about getting serious." While filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 2014, the actress fell for fellow actor Brad Pitt, which led to a lapse in her speech. It was widely known that he was married to Jennifer Aniston during that time, which was a highly scandalous move in Hollywood. The news that Jolie and Pitt are dating first appeared in the 2005 issue of Us Weekly. While feeding Maddox, they were apprehended on Kenya and #039 SD and #039 Annie Beach together. A Jolie, a Cambodian, adopted in 2002. Once word got out, Brangelina adopted 2 more children. Both Sahara and Pax, who emigrated from Vietnam and Ethiopia, respectively, welcomed 3 biological children between 2005 and 2007. In 2006, Shiloh was born, and in 2008, twins Knox and Vivian were born. In 2014, they secretly tied the knot, and their children were among the few invited guests. The couple and #039's divorce was finalized in 2018 and Jolie became a legally single person in 2019. "For the sake of my family, I went my separate ways. It was the correct choice," the Maleficent actress told Vogue India in 2020. "I am still very much concerned about the kids getting well." Actresses seem to be Billy Bob and #039's thing. He wed Connie England in 2014 after dating for 12 years before they met on the set of Bad Santa. Reportedly, the couple tied the knot in front of close relatives at their Los Angeles residence. October 22, 1964 was the birthdate. The following films featuring Connie include Men in Black, 1997, Planet of the Apes, 2001, and Men in Black 2, 2002, as listed on her IMDb site. It would appear that she is currently not active on any social media platforms. Also, in the year 1004, the couple welcomed a daughter named Bella Thornton. Of Billy Bob and #039's 4 children, she comes in at the bottom. On purpose, the Oscar winner doesn't and #039 let much light into his private life. His marriage to Angelina Jolie, his 5th wife, was the most publicized of his affairs, which contributed to the scrutiny. In my experience, being a celebrity can be challenging at times, especially when it comes to privacy concerns. I went through one of those phases when I was married to a famous person. In an episode of Oprah Winfrey and #039's Masterclass podcast from 2014, Thornton revealed this. He went on to say that he was pleased regardless of whether he married Anglin or not. "I and #039 am currently in a healthy relationship." He claimed to have been doing it for 10 years. Billy Bob and #039's marriage to Connie differs from his relationship with Angelina, as pointed out by GQ magazine in 2016. The article mentioned that he is much more comfortable with Connie. Like him, she prefers to stay at home and is educated by her mother. That means Billy gets to hang out at home with them whenever he and #039's off work. Thornton had myocarditis while he was a young man living in Los Angeles and spent time in the hospital. A disorder that is believed to be caused by his food and his heart. He then went on to say that he is very healthy, follows a vegan diet, because he is allergic to dairy and wheat, and never eats junk food. Thornton suffers from both dyslexia and OCD. Interviews with Thornton have provided ample documentation of a number of peculiar behaviors. One of these is an aversion to old furniture, which is something that Thornton and #039's character in Bandits, 2001, and Doyle Hargraves, Dwight Joachim, both suffer from. Furthermore, he has admitted to being afraid of specific kinds of cutlery, a trait he embodies as Grotowski, the protagonist of Monsters Ball, 2001, who uses a plastic spoon to eat his ice cream every day. The only difference is that I refuse to use genuine silver, Thornton said in an interview. For example, the large, hefty cutlery. That is just too much for me to overcome. It and hashtag 039 is identical to the old furnishings. Antiques aren't and hashtag 039 T my thing. For reasons I can and hashtag 039 T quite put my finger on, it and hashtag 039 is terrifying me. American antiques don and hashtag 039 T terrify me. Large, antique, ornately carved chairs with velvet upholstery, typical of the Louis XIV style, are typical of French furniture. What makes me uneasy is that I am quite good at spotting fake antiques. They exude an alternative energy with minimal dust. I wouldn't and hashtag 039 T describe myself as a traditional religious person, Thornton responded when asked about his spirituality. The Methodist Church was our destination. On Sundays, you would dress up in your clip-on tie and little witch outfit and head to church. I didn't and hashtag 039 T really pay attention, though. Extreme believers and non-believers alike insist they have a firm grasp on the matter. I don't and hashtag 039 T believe anyone who claims to know what happens. That and hashtag 039 is my faith, in a way. Billy Bob Thornton has a one-of-a-kind personality, unconventional relationships, and groundbreaking ideas. A multifaceted individual, he manages his notoriety with an equal measure of candor and humor.